All right, so are you ready to dive into Nosferatu?
Oh, absolutely. Let's do it.
We asked you to take a look at a couple reviews, and wow, they are really excited about this film.
Yeah, they are.
But it's Eggers, so
Right.
I mean, should we really be surprised?
I think what's interesting is that both reviewers already see him as such a visionary director.
Right.
Like they're already placing him in that category.
Yes.
And they see this as proof that he's really kind of pushing the boundaries and not afraid to really explore that darker side of storytelling.
Yeah, and it sounds like he's doing that by bringing back truly scary vampires.
Yeah.
Both reviewers were saying that this is not your typical vampire flick.
Right.
No sparkly skin here, no brooding romance.
Yeah. Oh, no.
This feels like a return to something genuinely unsettling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first review actually compares it to The Witch and say, they're both exploring these classic horror figures.
Right.
But Eggers just adds this layer of psychological depth that just makes them truly disturbing.
Okay, so let's talk about Count Orlock.
Yes.
What are the reviewers saying about Bill Skarsgård's performance?
Well, it's definitely generating buzz.
Okay.
One reviewer was just blown away by his voice acting,
Wow.
saying that he creates these sounds that are both captivating and eerie.
Wow, so he's like really going all out for this.
He is.
Okay.
But the other reviewer mentioned that some viewers might find the facial design a bit humorous.
Okay.
So it's that classic Eggers touch, blending horror with these subtle hints of absurdity.
But does that undercut the horror, though?
Not necessarily.
I mean, finding a vampire funny seems a bit counterintuitive.
I know, but it's more about creating a sense of unease.
Okay.
Like you're not sure if you should be laughing or recoiling in fear.
Okay.
It keeps you off balance, which actually enhances the horror.
That's a good point. It makes you question what you're seeing.
Exactly.
Which adds another layer to the whole experience.
Exactly. And that seems to be a recurring theme in his work,
Yeah.
He doesn't want to just scare you. He wants to make you think, to question your own perceptions.
Okay, so we've got this truly terrifying vampire.
Right.
But what about the human characters?
Huh?
The reviews both mention Lily Rose Depp's performance as Ellen.
Yes. She's getting a lot of praise for the complexity that she brings to the role.
Okay.
It sounds like she has to navigate some really intense emotions.
Yeah.
Fear, desire, maybe even a touch of madness.
And how does she handle all that?
One reviewer said that she's basically the emotional core of the film.
Oh, wow.
Like her performance is what anchors the story and keeps the audience invested, even when things get really dark.
So it's not just about the vampire's terror.
Right.
It's how these characters react to that terror.
Exactly.
How it affects their relationships and their sense of self.
Right. And speaking of complex characters, Nicholas Hoult also delivers a standout performance as Hutter.
Wow.
One reviewer even thinks this is his best role yet.
Wow, high praise.
Yeah.
What makes this performance so compelling?
Well, it sounds like he perfectly captures the character's descent into fear and paranoia.
Oh, wow.
You really feel his struggle to comprehend these supernatural forces that he's up against.
And so we've got Skarsgård, we've got Depp, we've got Hoult,
Yeah.
and the reviews also mentioned a pretty impressive supporting cast.
Oh, yes. Willem Dafoe,
Yeah.
Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Emma Corrin, Ralph Ineson. They all seem to contribute to the film's overall impact.
So he's like assembled this dream team of actors who can all bring something different to these roles.
It's really incredible.
And that makes sense considering the themes that the film is exploring.
Yeah.
One reviewer touched on this idea of obsession and the seductive pull of the supernatural.
It seems like the vampire represents something primal.
Right.
Something that taps into our deepest fears and desires.
Right. And the reviewers also mentioned how the film explores the psychological impact of the vampire's presence.
Yes.
Especially on Ellen.
Especially on Ellen, yeah.
Like warping her perception of reality.
Right. Blurring the lines between what's real and what's imagined.
And that's where things get really unsettling, right? It's not just about the physical threat.
Exactly.
It's about the erosion of the mind, the loss of control.
Exactly. And this psychological depth is what elevates Eggers' work beyond typical horror.
Right.
He's not just giving us monsters.
Right.
He's exploring the monstrous potential that exists within all of us.
And speaking of monsters, there's one scene in particular that I'm dying to hear more about.
Oh, yeah?
Hutter's first encounter with Count Orlock.
Yes.
What did the reviewers say about that?
That scene seems to be a masterclass in tension and dread.
Oh, wow.
One reviewer actually speculated that Skarsgård's physical transformation into Orlock might have genuinely terrified Hoult during filming.
So it wasn't just acting, like he was actually...
He may have actually been terrified.
Wow, that's incredible.
That's wild.
And that brings us to another point that one reviewer made, that there are aspects of Skarsgård's facial design as Orlock that some people might actually find funny.
Yes.
It's that blend of humor and horror that Eggers is known for.
Yeah, he's not afraid to make us uncomfortable,
Right.
to make us question our own reactions.
Yeah.
Remember those infamous farts in the lighthouse?
Oh yeah, it was so bizarre and unexpected.
Right.
But it also added to the film's unsettling atmosphere.
Exactly. And I think he's doing something similar here.
Yeah.
He's reminding us that even in the darkest of stories, there can be moments of absurdity, of dark humor.
Which in a way makes the horror even more effective.
Yeah.
You're laughing one minute and then the next you're recoiling in fear.
Right.
Keeps you on edge, constantly questioning what's coming next.
Right. And it's a reminder that horror doesn't have to be straightforward.
Right.
It can be subtle, psychological, even a little bit funny.
Right.
It's about creating an experience that stays with you, that makes you think about the world in a different way.
All right, so we've got a terrifying vampire.
Yeah.
We've got complex characters.
Uh-huh.
And we've got a healthy dose of Eggersy and weirdness.
Yes.
But what about the film's visual elements?
Yes.
The reviews both seem to agree that this is a visual masterpiece.
Absolutely. Both reviewers highlight the stunning cinematography,
Okay.
the intricate production design, the historically accurate costumes,
Yeah.
all meticulously crafted to create a truly immersive Gothic atmosphere.
And one reviewer even mentioned those long static takes that Eggers is known for.
Yes.
How do those contribute to the film's overall impact?
Well, those long takes really amplify the tension.
Oh, okay.
Like you're trapped in the scene.
Okay.
You're forced to witness every detail.
Yeah.
Every subtle shift in the character's expressions.
Oh, wow.
It creates this feeling of inescapable dread.
And what about the soundtrack?
Yeah.
Does that play a role in the film's atmosphere?
Definitely, the reviewers mentioned that the soundtrack is incredibly effective in creating a sense of unease and foreboding.
Oh, wow.
It's like another character in the film,
wow.
adding to the overall feeling of dread.
So it sounds like he's created this total sensory experience.
He has.
Where every element of the film is working together
Working together.
to create this truly unforgettable atmosphere.
Exactly. And that's what makes him such a visionary director.
Right.
He's not just telling a story, he's crafting an entire world, one that you can fully immerse yourself in.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground so far.
We have.
We've got a terrifying vampire,
Yes.
amazing performances,
Uh-huh.
stunning visuals,
Yep.
and a director who's not afraid to push boundaries.
Right.
But one thing that I'm really curious about is the ending of the film.
Yeah.
Neither of their reviews gave away any spoilers,
No, they didn't.
but they both hinted that it's pretty intense.
It is.
Yeah, one reviewer even said that the ending will stay with you long after the credits roll.
It sounds like he delivers a truly memorable and thought-provoking climax.
Okay, well, before we get to the ending,
Okay.
let's take a closer look at Lily Rose Depp's performance as Ellen.
Okay.
The reviewers seem to be really impressed by her range in this role.
It sounds like she's given a lot to work with here.
Okay. One reviewer specifically mentioned scenes where she's having emotional breakdowns, experiencing convulsions, and navigating intense love scenes, all while remaining relatable and sympathetic.
So it's a very demanding role,
It is,
both physically and emotionally.
definitely, and it seems like she's risen to the challenge.
Yeah.
The reviewer even calls her the North Star of the film,
Wow.
suggesting that her performance anchors the narrative and guides the audience through this dark and disturbing tale.
That's really high praise.
It is.
And it makes me even more curious to see how she embodies this character
Yes.
who's wrestling with such intense internal conflict.
It's a testament to both Depp's talent and Eggers' direction.
Yeah.
It sounds like they've created a truly complex and compelling character in Ellen.
Okay, before we get to part 2, let me ask you this.
Okay.
What stood out to you the most from these reviews so far?
For me, it's the way Eggers blends historical accuracy with psychological horror. He's not just creating a scary movie.
Right.
He's exploring the anxieties and superstitions of a specific time and place, making the horror feel all the more real and immediate.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's that attention to detail.
Yes.
That commitment to authenticity that sets him apart from other horror filmmakers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it makes me even more excited to see how he tackles this classic vampire tale.
Yeah.
It sounds like he's created something truly unique and unforgettable.
Well, I'm ready to keep going with this.
Let's do it.
So let's take a quick break, and we'll be back with part 2 of our deep dive into Nosferatu.
Sounds good. And speaking of historical accuracy, there's something really fascinating about how Eggers has woven the setting of Nosferatu into the film's themes.
Oh, really?
Both reviewers mention this plague that's ravaging the city.
Okay.
And how it creates this overwhelming sense of dread and uncertainty.
So it's like the vampire's arrival isn't just like a personal threat to the characters, it's like a reflection of a larger societal crisis.
Yeah.
This impending doom that's already hanging over everyone.
Exactly. And it adds another layer to the film's exploration of fear and paranoia.
Right.
It's not just about individual anxieties.
Okay.
It's about the collective anxieties of an entire community facing this unknown and deadly force.
Which makes the vampire even more terrifying, right?
Precisely.
It's like he's feeding off that pre-existing fear,
Yeah.
exploiting the vulnerabilities of a society that's already on edge.
And it makes you wonder if the vampire is just a symptom of a deeper malaise, a manifestation of the darkness that's already present within human society.
That's a chilling thought.
It is.
Like the vampire is just the embodiment of the fear and chaos that's already brewing.
Yeah, and that brings us back to the psychological depth that Eggers is known for.
Right.
He's not just interested in scaring us with a monster.
Right.
He's interested in exploring the monstrous potential that exists within ourselves, within our communities.
Right. He's forcing us to confront the darkness within humanity. The things that make us vulnerable to fear, to manipulation, to the allure of the unknown.
And that's what elevates his films beyond simple genre entertainment.
Right.
They're challenging, they're thought-provoking, and ultimately deeply human.
One thing I'm curious about is Willem Dafoe's character, Professor von Franz.
Yes.
One reviewer described him as being like heavily based on Van Helsing from Dracula.
Yes. It seems like Dafoe brings his signature intensity and charisma to the role,
Okay.
but with a twist.
Okay.
The reviewer noted an added layer of humor that makes his portrayal even more intriguing.
So it's almost as if Dafoe is playing like a self-aware Van Helsing.
Right.
Someone who understands the absurdity of a situation,
Yeah.
yet remains driven by his conviction.
And that makes for a much more compelling character, doesn't it?
It does.
He's not just a stereotypical vampire hunter.
Right.
He's grappling with the very nature of belief
Right.
and the limits of human understanding.
It's that clash between the rational and the irrational that always makes Eggers' films so fascinating.
Absolutely. And speaking of that clash, one reviewer also mentioned Ralph Ineson,
Okay.
who played such a memorable role in The Witch.
Yes.
He seems to play a similar role here as a doctor who tries to use logic and reason to combat the supernatural.
That's a really interesting parallel.
It is.
It suggests a recurring theme in Eggers' work, the struggle of humanity to confront forces that defy explanation.
It's like he's saying that sometimes the things that go bump in the night are beyond our comprehension.
Right.
Beyond our control.
And that can be a truly terrifying thought.
It can be.
Absolutely. And it brings us back to that point one reviewer made.
Yes.
They didn't find Nosferatu scary
Right.
in the traditional sense,
Right.
but rather unsettling and disturbing.
Yes.
They called it more of a dark fantasy.
Which, in a way, is even more effective, wouldn't you say? That lingering sense of unease.
Yes.
That creeping dread that stays with you long after the film is over.
Yeah.
Gets under your skin in a way that a jump scare never could.
Completely. It's like a seed that's been planted in your mind.
Yes.
Slowly taking root and growing into something dark and insidious.
Exactly. And that seems to be what Eggers is aiming for in Nosferatu.
Yeah.
He's not just trying to scare us.
Right.
He's trying to create a truly unsettling experience.
Right.
One that forces us to confront our own deepest fears and anxieties.
And he's doing that by tapping into those classic vampire tropes.
Right.
But with a fresh perspective.
Yes.
The reviewers both highlighted the film's exploration of obsession
Yes.
and how the supernatural can have this dark, almost seductive pull.
And that's particularly evident in Ellen's character, isn't it?
It is.
She's torn between her love for her husband and this strange, inexplicable attraction to Count Orlock.
Yeah, it's like he represents something primal.
He does.
Something that awakens those hidden desires and impulses that we try so hard to repress.
Precisely. And the reviewers also point out the struggle of the rational characters,
Right.
like Hutter and the Doctor, to understand and combat this irrational evil.
Right.
It's a classic horror trope.
Yeah.
But Eggers seems to be giving it a new depth, a new layer of meaning.
It's like he's suggesting that there are some things in this world
Yes.
that logic and reason simply can't explain.
Yes.
Some forces that are beyond our control, beyond our understanding.
And that can be a truly terrifying thought, can it?
It can.
The idea that there are things out there that defy our carefully constructed worldviews,
Right.
that operate outside the bounds of our understanding.
It's like the vampire is a symbol of the unknown, the unknowable, the things that look just beyond the edges of our perception.
And the reviewers both seem to agree that Eggers excels at bringing that sense of the unknown to life. They both praised the film's meticulously researched historical details, the authentic costumes and settings, the way he recreates the world of 19th century Europe with such precision and detail.
And that's what makes his films so immersive.
Yes.
So believable.
Yes.
Right. We're not just watching a generic horror movie.
No.
We're transported to another time and place.
Yes.
A world where the supernatural feels tangible, real, and utterly terrifying.
Exactly. He's not just telling a story. He's crafting an entire world, one that draws us in and makes us feel like we're right there in the midst of the horror.
You know, one thing that really stood out to me in the reviews was the emphasis on the psychological impact of the vampire's presence. It's not just about the physical threat.
Wow.
It's about the way the vampire preys on the character's vulnerabilities, their inner darkness.
It's like the vampire is a catalyst, exposing the cracks in their psyches.
Right.
The hidden desires and anxieties that lurk beneath the surface of their everyday lives.
And that's what makes Nosferatu so unsettling.
It is.
It's not just about a monster.
Right.
It's about the monstrous potential that exists within all of us.
Yes.
The things that drive us, that haunt us, that make us capable of both great love and unspeakable horror.
And one of the reviewers made a fascinating observation about Eggers' ability to blend humor and horror. They pointed out that there are moments in Nosferatu where you're not sure whether to laugh or be horrified.
Right, like that example they gave about Willem Dafoe's character and his digestive issues.
Yeah.
It's so absurd.
It is.
So out of place in this otherwise grim and atmospheric film that you can't help but laugh, even though it's also kind of disturbing.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
It is.
He's playing with our expectations, subverting the genre, and creating a truly unique and memorable experience.
And it sounds like he's doing something similar in Nosferatu with Skarsgård's facial design as Orlock.
Yes.
The reviewer mentioned that some people might actually find aspects of it funny.
Right.
But it's clearly intentional on Eggers' part.
It's as if he's acknowledging the inherent absurdity of the vampire myth. The way it's been romanticized and sanitized over the years.
Right.
He's reminding us that these creatures at their core are monstrous, grotesque, and perhaps even a little bit ridiculous.
It's like he's saying, look, I'm going to give you a truly terrifying vampire.
Yes.
But I'm also going to make you question why you find this creature so compelling, so alluring.
Exactly. And that speaks to his ability to deconstruct the myth.
Right.
To expose the underlying anxieties and desires that fuel our fascination with vampires.
Yeah.
He's making us confront the darkness within ourselves. The things that make us both repulsed and strangely attracted to these creatures of the night.
And one of the reviewers had a really interesting point about how Eggers often uses these moments of humor to heighten the horror, to keep the audience off balance and constantly guessing.
It's like he's creating a roller coaster of emotions.
Right.
Where you're never quite sure what's coming next.
Right. You're laughing 1 minute, next you're gasping in terror.
Right.
And then you're left with this lingering sense of unease that stays with you long after the film is over.
And it sounds like he's using those long, static takes to achieve that same effect. One reviewer described them as creating this feeling of inescapable dread.
Right.
Like you're trapped in the scene with the characters unable to look away from the horror unfolding before you.
Exactly. It's that sense of claustrophobia, of being trapped in this nightmare world with no escape.
Yes.
That makes Eggers' films so effective.
He's not just telling us a scary story. He's drawing us into the experience, making us feel the terror firsthand.
And that attention to detail, that commitment to historical accuracy only adds to the film's realism and intensity.
Absolutely.
It's like he's saying, this isn't just a fantasy, this could have actually happened.
And that makes the horror all the more disturbing, doesn't it?
It does.
The idea that these creatures, these dark forces, might actually exist lurking just beyond the edges of our perception, waiting for the right moment to strike.
So to kind of pull all of this together, it sounds like this Nosferatu is more than just a remake.
It is.
It's a visual feast. It's a psychological thriller, a historical drama, and a deeply unsettling exploration of humanity's darkest impulses.
Exactly. And it's a testament to Eggers' unique vision as a filmmaker.
Right.
His ability to blend genre conventions, historical accuracy, and psychological depth into a truly unforgettable cinematic experience.
And that brings us to the ending of the film.
Yes.
Which both reviewers described as incredibly intense and thought-provoking.
Yes.
Without giving away any spoilers, can you tell us a little bit more about what they said?
Well, one reviewer said that the ending left them with a sense of profound unease.
Okay.
A feeling that the horror they had witnessed wasn't just confined to the screen,
Wow.
but had somehow seeped into the real world.
That's powerful.
They said it was an ending that would stay with them, haunt them, make them question the very nature of reality itself.
Wow, it sounds like Eggers is really pushing the boundaries of horror here.
He is.
Crafting an experience that transcends the typical jump scares and gore to
Yeah.
delve into something much deeper, much more unsettling.
And the other reviewer mentioned that the ending left them with this sense of ambiguity.
Okay.
A feeling that the true horror of the film lay not in what was explicitly shown,
Right.
but in what was left unsaid, unseen, lurking just beyond the edges of the narrative.
That's really interesting.
It is.
It's like he's inviting the audience to fill in the blanks,
Yeah.
to confront their own fears and anxieties about the unknown.
Exactly. And that ambiguity, that sense of unresolved tension, can be far more terrifying than any explicit gore or violence.
Yeah.
It leaves the audience with a feeling of unease, of uncertainty that lingers long after the film is over.
So it sounds like the ending of Nosferatu is a fitting culmination of all the themes and ideas that Eggers has been exploring throughout the film.
Absolutely. It's a powerful and unsettling conclusion that forces the audience to confront the darkness within themselves, the fragility of their own sanity, and the terrifying possibility that there are forces at work in the world that are beyond our comprehension, beyond our control.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about something else that both reviewers mentioned.
Yeah.
The incredible performances, particularly Lily Rose Depp's portrayal of Ellen.
Yes, her performance seems to be a real highlight of the film.
Okay.
One reviewer described her as the emotional core of the narrative. The character through whom we experience the full spectrum of human emotions, from love and desire to fear and despair.
And another reviewer praised her ability to convey the character's descent into madness.
Yes.
The way she gradually loses her grip on reality as the vampire's influence takes hold.
They even mentioned specific scenes where she's having emotional breakdowns, experiencing convulsions, navigating intense love scenes, all while remaining utterly believable and sympathetic.
That's incredible.
It is.
It sounds like a truly demanding role, both physically and emotionally.
Absolutely. And it seems like she rose to the challenge brilliantly.
Yeah.
One reviewer even called her the North Star of the film,
Wow.
suggesting that her performance anchors the narrative and guides the audience through this dark and disturbing tale.
That's really high praise.
It is.
And it makes me even more curious to see how she embodies this character who's wrestling with such intense internal conflict.
Yeah.
Torn between her love for her husband and the strange, inexplicable attraction to Count Orlock.
It's a testament to both Depp's talent and Eggers' direction.
Yeah.
They seem to have created a truly complex and compelling character in Ellen.
Okay.
Someone who's both a victim and an agent in this horrific story.
Okay. Let's talk a bit more about that attraction to Count Orlock.
Okay.
One of the reviewers mentioned that it's not just Ellen who feels this pull toward the vampire.
Right.
Even Hutter, who's initially repulsed by Orlock, seems to develop a strange fascination with him.
And that's one of the things that makes Eggers' vampires so fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
They're not just monstrous predators.
Right.
They're also alluring figures, seductive in their darkness, their otherness, their power.
It's like they represent a forbidden knowledge.
Yes.
A glimpse into something primal and dangerous that we both fear and desire.
Exactly. And that duality, that blend of attraction and repulsion is what makes the vampire myth so enduring, so compelling.
And it seems like Eggers is playing with that duality in Nosferatu.
Yeah.
He's giving us a vampire who's both terrifying and alluring, monstrous and strangely sympathetic.
And he's forcing us to confront our own reactions to this creature.
Right.
Our own fascination with the darkness, the unknown, the forbidden.
You know, one of the reviewers had a really interesting point about how Eggers often uses these long, static takes to amplify that sense of fascination.
Yeah.
They said it's like he's inviting us to stare into the abyss,
Right.
to confront the horror head on,
Yeah.
with no escape, no distractions.
It's like he's saying, look, this is the darkness, this is the monster, and you can't look away.
And that can be a truly unsettling experience, can it?
It can.
To be forced to confront something that repels us.
Yes.
That terrifies us, yet hold a strange fascination over us.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that makes Eggers such a masterful horror filmmaker. He understands the power of that gaze, the way it can both horrify and captivate us.
Right.
Draw us into the darkness, even as we try to resist it.
And he's using that gaze to explore not just the monsters that lurk in the shadows,
Right.
but the monsters that reside within ourselves, within our own hearts.
Exactly. And that's what makes Nosferatu more than just a horror film.
Right.
It's a psychological thriller.
Yeah.
A meditation on the nature of good and evil, on the fragility of the human psyche, and on the seductive power of the darkness that lies within us all.
Okay, before I move on to part 3, let me ask you this.
Okay.
What do you think it is about Eggers' films that makes them so disturbing, so unforgettable?
For me, it's his ability to tap into our primal fears, our anxieties about the unknown, the uncontrollable.
Right.
He doesn't rely on cheap jump scares or excessive gore.
Right.
Instead, he creates this pervasive atmosphere of dread, a sense that something is deeply wrong, even if we can't quite articulate what it is.
And that sense of dread is often heightened by his meticulous attention to detail.
Yes.
His commitment to historical accuracy.
It's like he's saying, this isn't just a story. This could have actually happened.
Exactly. And that makes the horror feel all the more real, all the more immediate, all the more disturbing.
It does.
And, you know, one thing that really struck me in both reviews was how strongly they recommended seeing Nosferatu on the big screen.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, it speaks to the film's visual power.
Right.
The way Eggers uses every element,
Yeah.
cinematography, production design, costume, to create this immersive world.
It's like stepping back in time to 19th century Europe,
Right.
but with this lurking sense of dread that something's not quite right.
And, you know, isn't there something about seeing horror in a theater
Yeah.
that just amplifies the experience?
Oh, absolutely.
Being surrounded by other people in the dark,
Yeah.
everyone reacting to those moments of tension or release,
Yeah.
it becomes almost a communal experience.
Exactly. You're all sharing in that fear,
Yes.
that unease, which makes it all the more powerful.
Right.
Okay, so big screen communal experience.
Yeah.
But what about the story itself?
Right.
Neither review gave away the ending,
No.
but they both hinted that it's pretty intense.
It is one reviewer even said it left them with a feeling of profound unease.
Oh, wow.
Like the horror had somehow seeped out of the screen and into reality.
That's intense.
It is.
So it sounds like Eggers doesn't tie everything up neatly with a bow.
No, he doesn't.
He leaves you with questions with a sense of lingering dread.
Right, which is much more effective than a predictable ending.
Yes.
The other reviewer said it left them with a feeling of ambiguity.
Okay.
Like the real horror was what was left unsaid, unseen.
So it's like he's inviting the audience to confront their own fears.
Yes.
And anxieties about the unknown to fill in the blanks with their own imagination.
Which can be far more terrifying than anything he could have explicitly shown on screen.
Right.
It allows the horror to linger,
Yeah.
to take root in your mind and grow.
So it seems like this Nosferatu is more than just a scary movie.
It is.
It's an experience that stays with you,
Yeah.
that makes you think, that challenges your perceptions.
It's a testament to Eggers' skill as a filmmaker,
Right.
that he can achieve all of that.
Yeah.
He's not just giving us monsters.
Right.
He's making us confront the darkness within ourselves, within humanity itself.
And he does it all with such artistry and precision.
Yes.
Both reviewers were blown away by his attention to historical detail, his use of long takes to create tension,
Right.
his haunting soundtrack.
He's a true master of his craft.
Right.
And this Nosferatu sounds like a culmination of everything he's been working towards.
So to wrap things up, it sounds like this Nosferatu is a must-see.
It is.
For any fan of horror,
Absolutely.
or anyone who appreciates truly visionary filmmaking.
Absolutely. It's a film that will stay with you, challenge you, and possibly even change the way you see the world.
And before we go, I have to ask, out of everything we discussed, what stood out to you the most?
You know, for me, it's that Eggers isn't simply remaking a classic film. He's using Nosferatu as a vehicle to explore deeper themes.
Right.
About human nature.
Right.
About our fascination with the darkness.
Right.
About the monstrous potential that exists within us all.
That's such a great point. He's not just giving us scares.
Right.
He's making us think, making us question, making us confront the shadows within ourselves.
And isn't that what great art should do?
It is.
Challenge us, provoke us, stay with us long after the experience is over.
Absolutely. So, to our listener, we highly recommend checking out Nosferatu.
Yes.
But be warned.
Ye warned.
This is not just a horror movie.
No.
It's an experience that will get under your skin and stay with you long after the credits roll.
And we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yes.
Did it scare you?
Yeah.
Did it make you think?
Yeah.
Let us know your reactions.
Yes.
Until then, happy viewing and sweet dreams.
See you next time on The Deep Dive.